In this lesson, we will learn about assembling our geometry into more complex models. So over the course of the last few lessons, we just looked at some of the basic tools that can be used to build models based on polygons, NURBS, or subdivision surfaces. Now, once you start to get those pieces built, you'll want to incorporate those into a larger model, usually made of multiple pieces. And so let's start to do that. This is lesson _10_start in the project files if you want to use that. And I'm going to go ahead and go to File, and let's import the work that we've done over the last few lessons. And we'll import lesson 07 end. Okay, let's go ahead and import 08 end. And we'll import 09 end. And these are basically the three results that we got from the last few lessons that we've done here. Okay, and so let's take a look at what we've got. We've got the piece of NURBS geometry that we created. We've got the subdivision surface that we created, and the polygons that we built. Now, the first thing that we'll look at, if we go into our outliner here, we can see those model nodes here. We've got our subdivision surface, our NURBS, we've got our NURBS curve still associated with that, and then we've got some polygons here and a deformer. Okay, so the first thing that we'll do is look at this lug nut. So right now it's two separate pieces, and let's say that I actually want to make that one piece that I can move around. I never really want to have the cap without the bottom and so forth, and so I want to make this one piece. Well, we could group it as we saw earlier, or we can actually make this one piece of geometry. So to do that, I'll shift select both of these and then go to Mesh, Combine, and that will combine them into one single piece of geometry. Okay, and you can see those nodes here. To get rid of all of that information about where this came from, all of the modeling that we've done to it, I want to actually go ahead and delete its history right here under Edit. Okay, you can see how that cleans everything up. And so now we have a single bolt here, or a single lug nut, and we can go ahead and rename that. Okay, we also have this wheel, so we can double click on this to change the name. Okay, and then we have this NURBS surface, which is still connected to the curve. Okay, so if I were to take the curve, and let's find it, we want to make sure that on the filter we have NURBS curves turned on. You can see that if I select this curve, it's still connected to that object. To remove that connection, we'll do the same thing we just did as far as deleting the history. So we'll select the object, go ahead and delete history, and now if we select the curve and the points, you can see it's disconnected. So we don't need that curve any longer. We'll go ahead and get rid of that. Okay, we'll go ahead and rename this NURBS surface. Okay, and then we've got the sub-D surface here. Let's go ahead and just scale this up, and we'll double click to name that. Okay, let's go ahead and start to assemble these pieces into something that looks a little more like an actual object here. And so I'll rotate, I'll rotate this spoke here. I'll start to rotate it in the Z, and you can see those values change here. I'll go ahead and just type in -90 because I know I just want to turn it all the way on its side there. Pull this out. Let's also take this wheel, okay, and let's scale this up, and we'll rotate it in the Z as well. And again, we can make sure it's rotated properly by putting in that number. We'll go ahead and scale it up to match kind of with the tire that we've got there. Now, when you scale it up uniformly, which is to say in all axes, it may not fit exactly, so you can always scale it down a little bit in a particular axis by clicking on the little handle. All right, and we can take the sub-D surface and we'll match it up by just taking this and pushing it back in. Okay, now we still have the bolt to think about, so we'll kind of pull this out. We know the direction we want it to go, so we'll go ahead and rotate it -90, and now we can scale it down so that it fits in the little indentions that we've created there, the little openings. And so when you start to create models, you are really going to find that a lot of times you're going to have repeating pieces of geometry. So in this case, we've got this lug nut that we've created, and we actually want 1, 2, 3, 4 more of those. So thinking about this, we're not going to create 4 lug nuts from scratch. We're going to take the one that we've created and duplicate it. Okay, so to duplicate, we'll hit Control D, or we can go up here under Edit and go to Duplicate, and we'll pull that duplicate off and then place the duplicate. So in this case, we made another bolt, and we'll place it down there. So a lot of things that you're going to create are going to be repeated pieces, and so you can actually duplicate those. All right. Now, one cool thing that you can do with duplication is duplicate around a particular axis. So in this case, I'll hit Spacebar, and let's go into the side view, and we'll go into a wireframe view. We can see here that we've got the bolt, and then we've got the openings where we want the rest of those bolts. We have 3 more. So we could just hit Control D to duplicate and move it into position. In this case, that'd be fairly quick because we only have 3 more to do. But let's look at another way that we can do this. Now we have all of these transforms in here, and I want to actually zero all of those transforms out. So I'm going to go to Modify and freeze those transformations. It doesn't move the lug nut, it just takes all of those values and takes them back to default. Now I want to move the pivot so that it rotates around this center point. To do that, I'll hit Insert on the keyboard and move the pivot. I want to snap it to this point, so I'll hold down X to snap. Hitting Insert again will take us back to our object mode here. Now you can see if I rotate this along the X, it rotates around into all of the holes. So to actually duplicate these all in one shot, rather than hitting Control D and rotating that, we can actually go to Duplicate Special. And before we do that, so if we go into Duplicate Special, you can see that we have some options here for rotation values. And so we want to check and see how many degrees will this rotate before it goes into the next hole. So looking at this, it's going to be about 71. And so we'll put that into the value here. But in this case, we want it to actually be in the X. So we'll say minus 71 in the X, 0. So, and we'll make 3 copies. So really all this is saying is that we're going to create copies. We are going to move each copy, rotate each copy 71 degrees, and we're going to do it 3 times. So let's see what happens when we hit Apply. You can see that it actually went that direction. So it copied here, here, and here. We actually wanted to go the other direction. So we'll undo that. And then we'll try to go the other way. So in this case, instead of minus 71, we'll do positive 71 and apply. And you can see that it's now gone this direction and made all of those duplicate bolts. Okay, now we want to be able to transform this as one piece. And so what we want to do is actually group those pieces together. Okay, and so go ahead and make sure that's named. We'll select all of the objects, and we'll hit Control G to group, and we can just call this wheel. And now we have a single wheel. Now when we create a new group, our pivot point comes in at the origin, which in this case is perfect because our wheel is centered on the origin, so that when we rotate the wheel, it rotates as it should. Now we've created just a simple little wheel using a few little pieces, but using the same techniques, you can actually create an entire vehicle. So if I turn on this layer, we can see that we actually have an entire car here, and it's just using the same sort of techniques that we've used up to this point. And we can go ahead and take our wheel and start to scale it to match with the car that we've got and assemble the different pieces for our model. Okay, we get one wheel in there, hit Control D to duplicate, and we can start to populate our model and finish it up with a couple of wheels, and then duplicate those over to the other side. Now, if you actually want to build this car, we do go through the whole process step by step in our automotive modeling training, but I wouldn't recommend starting there. If you would like to start learning more about modeling and just Maya in general, I think a good place to start would be the Introduction to Maya. So in this course, we actually go through the whole process of everything that you can do within Maya. So really getting you started on all of the disciplines that you're able to work with, including modeling, animation, dynamics, and things like that. So as far as the modeling portion goes, you'll actually go in and model this racer. Okay. Now, if you're still interested in modeling after you go through that, the Introduction to Modeling is going to be a great option for you. And here we use the Swiss Army knife to really go into a lot of the different modeling tools that are available, from polygons to NURBS to subdivision surfaces, looking at all of those tools and how you can step-by-step learn to use those to create the objects that we see. And then after that, you can continue on into more advanced topics, poly sub-D modeling, and then go into create step-by-step motorcycle, and this is the vehicle that we just saw kind of rendered up. And so there's a lot of different options based on all different kinds of experience levels that you can go through. So really, no matter what your interest, we'll have something for you. So if you want to, if you enjoy the course and you want to learn more, just make sure to check out all of the additional training content that we have available at digitaltutors.com.